Yes, folks, it's time for the World Edition once again, and let's see what's happening in the world. First off, the president apparently snuck into Kiev, and definitely nobody seemed to be noticing at that particular point and place. Because definitely he snuck into there and definitely met with the leaders of Ukraine, and then I guess he snuck back because when he snuck back, he ran into anti-war protesters who crashed his dinner out in Washington D.C. And they said, "I hate to bother you, but people are dying." We have to find out who some of these protesters were. Who knows? Maybe with some of our past guests and along those lines. And of course, I'm very curious to see what people think about the president sneaking over there to Ukraine. And apparently, he did it under the cloak of darkness and all in that space and got away with it. So I'm sure that our folks will have interesting things to say about that. And we'll definitely get to that in a minute and all along those lines. Russia, surprisingly, in this news, said that it is going to suspend participation in the New START nuclear treaty with the United States. So they said that they are going to suspend that participation. And why would we be surprised about that in the least bit? I don't think anybody is, but hey, that's just what's going on and all in that case. So that is some of the news that we're hearing about. And definitely, there was another earthquake over there in Turkey. So panic was definitely ensuing as Turkey and Syria were rocked again by a 6.3 earthquake and a 6.3 magnitude. Some people are saying 6.4, but either way, that is another devastating earthquake in that region of the world. And the Knesset over there in Israel has passed its first reading of a bill to give coalition control over chosen judges. And Benjamin Netanyahu has accused his protesters of trampling democracy. So I don't know what folks will be saying about the protesters around here, but that is what he is saying about the ones over there. And Russia has its own problems in addition to the whole thing going on with Ukraine. Apparently, they have some stranded space station crew members, so they're launching a mission to give stranded space station crew members a ride home. So I guess they've been stuck up in space. They might need them to come back down because once they come back down, they'll probably be put back into the service and go over there fighting in Ukraine. That's just my guess as to what will happen in that particular case. And the South Korea courts are recognizing same-sex couple rights for the first time. So that is coming into the news as well, and that is something that we are seeing going on in that space. And we all remember the Brexit deal, and apparently there is a new Brexit deal that is being coming out of Northern Ireland and in that space. So Rishi Sunak tells cabinet that his intensive Brexit talks are continuing with the EU. So definitely we're going to find out what's going on there. And of course, China's jumping into the Ukraine war, and we would not be surprised by that at all. But China warns the West against adding fuel to fire in the Ukraine war. So definitely, and even Zelensky warns of a new world war if China allies with Russia. So that China said that it is furious after the U.S. warns against arming Russia, and China said the U.S. is in no position to tell China what to do. So that is what is going on over there. So if those two countries get into a whole ally agreement, it sounds like we could even be heading further into a world war like situation and all in that space. And Biden, like I said earlier, is definitely over there in Europe. And apparently he met with Poland leaders and is set to speak about what is going on with the whole Ukrainian situation and all in that way. And definitely Japan is in the news, and they are pledging to lead the world in fighting Russian aggression with 5.5 billion in Ukraine aid. So that is how much that they are going to put into it. And they are saying that they are going to be a leader in that space as well. And if you're wondering about some of the news coming out of Nigeria, Nigeria is about to hold Africa's largest democratic exercise. That's right. They're going to be having this whole presidential race, and it'll be several folks. It'll be uh, candidates in that part of the world, and it'll be interesting to find out if maybe even Shaquille met with any of the folks from that part of the world when he went to Africa and visited Kenya not that long ago. But he's here, so maybe he'll have some thoughts about that as well. And we're going to see what else is going on in the United States. And of course, I do have to ask a teasing question to one of our guests and all of that. And I'll bring that up in a minute. And speaking of Japan and China, by the way, Japan has bid a teary farewell to pandas sent to a reserve in China. So the much-loved giant panda was forced to leave the Tokyo Zoo where it was born as China recalls debt. And definitely looks like they were saying, hey, that's a nice little panda that we sent you, but now we need the panda back in our area and all in that space. So that is one of the things that is going on. Of course, people are still paying attention to that Ohio train derailment and its impact on the whole infrastructure conversation and all in that space. There is a election that is still going on. That is a special congressional election. It's actually just to the north of us, but Virginia voters are heading to the polls in a special congressional election, and that's the one that has got McClellan facing against Benjamin in Virginia's 4th district. So that is some of the things that we're hearing about. And the DeSantis team has fired back at Eric Adams after he offers to teach Florida governor about New York City values. So there's a little bit of tit and tat between some of the political folks that are involved in that whole aspect of politics and all along those lines. And last but not least, and then I'll bring up Lee Newton Rhodes, and that's when I'll give him the little teasing remarks that I promise all of you listeners and everything. But Alex Baldwin charges, actor is no longer facing firearm enhancement in that particular manslaughter case. So it does look like they are looking at reducing some of that. So Alex Baldwin is now facing reduced prison sentences after charges were dropped in The Fatal Rust. That was the name of the movie, shooting and all in that kind of line. So we'll see if folks have thoughts about that. And of course, we do know that all the party candidates, whether it be Republican or Democrat, are heading off and trying to get their donors to back them and all in that space. So that is definitely some of the things that we are hearing in the world and all in that kind of way. So we are definitely going to hear more about things that are happening. Of course, our condolences do go out to the fallen Temple police officer who is remembered as a good father who loved his work. And that is the officer, Christopher Fitzgerald. And there was also a suspect that was arrested in the fatal shooting of a Peacemaker Catholic bishop in Los Angeles. And I don't know what it is with these animals, but apparently they are trying to get revenge. I told y'all last time about the chicken that mauled and killed the farmer not that long ago and everything. And apparently over there in Alaska, an Anchorage woman was kicked in the head by a moose while she was walking her dog and all in those kind of lines. So I'm going to bring in Lee Rhodes first. I may have Nick Palveda come in. I did see Shaquille at one point and got other folks. Lee, what I was going to tease you about, and I'm going to get to that point right now, is
Good morning, Mark.
Alligator go, because apparently there was an alligator roaming around New York City and all of that. And I want to know why you let your pet alligator loose and all in that space. Because I thought about you when I heard about this alligator that was roaming there in New York City. And I'm going like, Lee let his alligator loose. How dare you?
That thing was 4 feet long. I mean, someone had, obviously it was a pet that overgrew someone's apartment or house or something like that. I remember when I was little, they were in pet shops in Georgia. They used to sell baby alligators, but those things were, a couple inches long, and they stopped selling them years ago. But they don't make really good pets when they get that big. What are you gonna do with them? Take them for a walk?
Yeah, apparently you can't take it for a walk. And I do remember in those same lines, and I don't know how much of that was true and how much of that was wives' tales, but some of it I think was true, where in that same area, there were always those reports of the alligators that had gotten found in like the New York sewer systems and other things. So I'm thinking that was another case, historically speaking, of somebody getting a pet alligator, whether it was from the South or whatever, and then it grew too long or too tall and decided to slide through the sewers and all of that and would vanish to wherever they vanished to. And
you see this with snakes also. People, they decide they don't want the pet anymore. So instead of disposing of it, to the ASPCA or some organization, they just let it loose in a park. And it's not its habitat, and it's not safe for the animal or the public.
Yeah,
or other animals.
Yeah, there was an 85-year-old person who got killed by an alligator in Florida, in Fort Pierce yesterday. If you ever watch alligators, like I grew up in Florida, so I kind of got to watch them firsthand. Even had one in our backyard in our pond. And the first thing we did is make sure our kids never went out because they're fast. In other words, if you're standing on the shoreline, the alligator can get you like that. Bang.
That happened a few years ago, Nick, in Disneyland. Right. Someone waded into the water at night where they weren't supposed to, a child, and unfortunately lost their life.
Yeah, the thing is, if you want to see how fast alligators are, just go to YouTube videos and type in alligators, and you're going to see that they can be very docile. When they're sleeping on the shoreline, they don't do anything. But if they're in the water and they're hunting, you get close to them, what have you. But the difference is in New York, they don't live up here. In Florida, certain places, a lot of places, it's their natural habitat. Yeah, right. Definitely their natural habitat. Backyard. I mean, it was literally in our backyard, and we called animal control.
Hey, Nick, did you ever run across a manatee? Did you ever run across a manatee? Because when I worked there many years ago, I do remember that one of the stories I covered literally was a manatee being stuck in the house. I think it was stuck in like the carport area and all of that. And those are some very large animals that I don't think you want to get stuck in your house. But I do remember that as being a story.
I don't know how they could possibly even get in a house.
Yeah, manatees are usually in the water, and they're like big walruses that float around in the water, and they don't really bother anybody. I saw some down when I was in Sarasota.
They're fairly docile.
They're very docile, and they're basically an endangered species because they continually have the motorboats run over the manatees and kill them. I mean, it's really they have a big fight, and of course in Florida there's a lot of boats. Especially was it February? Boats are everywhere, and that creates a lot of problems for the manatee down in Florida. Not as exciting as the earthquakes though in Turkey, which
Turkey,
right? Another one.
It's horrible.
The last one they said it killed like 40,000 people.
Right.
It's shocking to see how many people actually live over there. I mean, Syria has a population, 50 to 100 million people. It's kind of big. So,
Mark, we got you. You're in charge of the podcast. In the journalism world, there's a breaking news coming out yesterday. I don't know if you followed the Project Veritas, James O'Keefe.
I did hear a little bit about that. And
evidently, my take on it is, it's okay to expose the truth about people, just not the wrong ones. Be careful who you do. The board kicked him out. He was fired. He's the one who started. He's been there 13 years. And the only thing that's changed in the last week is the Pfizer videos that came out.
Right.
But he's gone from Project Veritas. And a lot of donors are very upset about that, and a lot of people are.
Well, that's hypocritical.
There's a case right now before the U.S. Supreme Court relating to TikTok. And what they do is they feed people. The media industry is so hypocritical, it's not even funny anymore. They feed kids. The person was showing how they do it. They strangle themselves or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened is they started feeding the kid more and more how to strangle yourself videos, like no kidding, because the algorithm said, well, they like to see how they strangle themselves. Let's send them more. And eventually the kids strangled themselves and died. Seriously.
But Nick, part of that is, you lawyers have all these long rules and regulations, and they're hard to this legal about
United States.
Yeah, but
and the argument is free speech.
I know they say free speech, and there are certain things that are basic, like free speech, the right to hold weapons, and a number of other free rights that are out there. But then there's these long books and everything that have all these different rules and everything. And apparently, the heart of this legal battle is something called Section 230 of the Communications
Section
Decency
230,
Act,
right? Which
a nearly 30-year-old federal law that courts have repeatedly
Right.
said provides broad protection to those tech platforms, but has since come under scrutiny because of growing criticism of big tech's content moderation decisions, which I don't know that they actually have any of these decisions.
It's interesting because you're right. They're going on Section 230 saying we're innocent. All we're doing is distributing content. When in fact, all these media industries are not innocent. They spend millions of dollars. Most of the people that work at Facebook and they're working in these media industry, TikTok, their sole job is to manipulate you to get you to continue to watch their media. That's their job. They have no other job because.
Well, they do have another job, Nick. A lot of their jobs are censoring data and content they don't want you to see.
Oh, yeah, right. There we go. Censoring data that you don't want to see. And I can tell you they micromanage because I've been kicked off Facebook. I think I'm banned right now. It's so bad. And I just don't want to get back on Facebook again because I'm going, what a waste of time these people are. They micromanage everything. And now they're saying, well, we can't micromanage sending kids data to show them how to kill themselves. Are you serious?
But can they micromanage and can they
all they have to do
micromanage and can they be in charge of things that are apparently risky in the sense of terrorism and all of that? Because apparently one of these cases is Gonzalez versus Google, and that's on YouTube, and this whole promotion of a terrorist video on its platform. So according to the plaintiffs in the case, the family of Nohami Gonzalez, who was killed in a 2015 ISIS attack in Paris, YouTube's targeted recommendations violated a U.S. anti-terrorism law by helping to radicalize the viewers and promote ISIS's views worldwide. So apparently, they're like,
and you know, the thing is, they're trying to fool the world that they don't control their data. They control all their data, Mark. We know that. We run an international TV network. I can guarantee you, we control all our data. They control all their data, and they have much more resources to do it than we do. And so the thing is, are they liable? Absolutely. You know, because what they did intentionally is feed this kid bad data. And then now all of a sudden, the minute they get sued, they go, oh, we don't have any control over that. It's free speech. Baloney. There is no free speech. It's called controlled speech.
Nick, why don't they get rid of the protection then? Why doesn't Congress remove it?
Well, remember, Congress got paid off by big tech to put it in there. Please, hello, knock, knock, knock. News.
Well, who do you think gave? Who do you think?
230 in there.
Who do you think gave them the technology to do all this to begin with?
Pardon?
Who do you think gave the tech companies the technology to do this to begin with?
Oh, you saying which country?
Just think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things the federal government does is they proliferate new technologies through private companies with private individuals. That's developed by them through their various research.
Hey, Dan, along those same lines, that's actually one that you brought that up, because that's actually one of the complaints that is coming out of a region of the country that I lived in briefly while I was attending Marquette, that being Wisconsin, because they are having a big judicial race in their state Supreme Court and all in that kind of way. And apparently there's some question about where the money is coming in, because they're saying that millions of dollars have been injected into the battle by members of the Yulin family, which apparently is a manufacturing dynasty with roots in Milwaukee. I'm thinking that they're tied into the whole beer community and all in that way. So it seems like another case of a very famous family, because actually they are tied to the Slits family. So I actually just looked that up, and they were tied to the Slits family, which has been around since 1875 and all of that. So they've got plenty of money, and they're using this money to influence a particular race. And we can say the same thing about the Koch brothers and a number of others. Doesn't matter which side of the aisle you're on, that these folks that have got.
Which race are they trying to influence, the blacks or the whites?
In this case, they're trying to influence a Supreme Court race, so I'm not sure who the candidates are,
you
but
were
it's a
talking about
Supreme
this
Court
is
race, and
the
apparently
first
it has
time
to
in
do,
a long
and of
time.
course,
I thought,
abortion is on the table there as well,
yeah.
just like it is any place else. So I'm sure that is
Well,
things, and they
so
did
that's
say
what
that
happens. That's what happens all the time, Mark. So what's the news?
Well, I'm saying, but my point is,
My
I
point
don't know
was
that
not
everybody
about
pays as
private
much attention to it
individuals.
as we do. So
My point was about government interference in technology, which they do all the time. They interfere and manipulate and try to affect public opinion through new technologies that are transformative in one way or another. They just time it, right?
no, they
And
time
so
it. Yep,
is
they
it
time
no?
it.
Is it no? Is it no surprise we're seeing what we're seeing?
No.
Media has been manipulated for decades.
Mhm.
Just watch the media coverage ever since World War II, really, and you see that there's been sort of a cozy relationship with government and media all along.
Yeah.
We had a little bit of an awkward moment during the Vietnam War where the media kind of turned a little bit, but the Russians put in $600 million back in those days. That was money of spending money to try to create subversion among groups in the United States. So a lot of the funding that took place on the campuses and other things was with Russian money. My guess is we're seeing the same thing in the United States now with Antifa and the others. Probably Russian funding and or Soros funding. I mean, I don't know who's doing it, but they all do it for one reason, and that's to create disruption and political division.
No, and they definitely do that. And actually, I had two quick questions. One that was related to my original thought about this whole thing going on in Wisconsin. They actually are doing something unique, which maybe some families do, but I don't know that every family does it. But it can make for a very interesting dinner party and everything, particularly with Easter coming up not that far away, and Thanksgiving at the end of the year. But apparently, they have divided the family. So on one side stands the billionaire couple, Richard and Elizabeth Hewlin, who are on track and giving a lot of money to the conservative candidate. And on the other side is their cousin, who's also got some money and is giving it to the liberal candidate. So they're using their billions, but they're splitting it.
Either way they win.
What a waste.
Exactly. Either way they win. Either way the family wins. And
it is ridiculous. Either way they own them, right?
But either way they own whoever comes in. That's my point. Is that there's a lot of money ownership in that. You did bring up a point, and it was a term that used to be very popular in the early 1900s, and I don't know that it ever died. And yes, I am a journalism graduate, but do the folks that are here on the panel think that yellow journalism is still a thing? Because that was the term that was used by the Hearst and other folks. Is yellow journalism still a thing in the sense?
Oh, yeah, yes.
Mark, do you want to define that term, please?
Yeah, define yellow journalism.
Yellow journalism is basically journalism that is about the sensational. It's about the creating of the sensational, and a lot of times it's biased journalism as well. But Hearst was very much a fan of yellow journalism, and definitely would sometimes be more propaganda than actual journalism.
Oh, yeah.
In my opinion, journalism is ability to put something down on paper for what you'll be paid. That's all what it is.
Right. Didn't the National Enquirer have a little byline, "Weak minds want to know," or something like that?
That's not what it said.
Isn't that what it said, Dan? Weak minds want to know.
Well, but that's what it meant. It's not.
Oh, okay. All right, that's not what it said.
Inquiring
Hey, speaking since we have Sasha, we have some big news in Ukraine. Joe Biden apparently decided to go visit Ukraine, which I thought was pretty interesting. Went to Kyiv, which we broadcast from, which one of our shows. And then apparently he retreated back to Poland. So, Sasha, what's going on there? Is the United States saying, hey, we support you? Look, we even sent our president to Kyiv. What's your thoughts on that, Sasha?
My thoughts at Biden, it was very dare attempt to show his unity with Ukraine. And remember, we are talking.
Well, they paid him enough. I mean, he should have.
No, look, I'm talking about Biden and Democrats. I'm not talking about Republicans, because Republicans are 75%
No, I'm talking about
are
Biden.
against
They paid him
helping
enough.
Ukraine. So let's talk about two Americas. One America is on the same step with Ukraine, helping it, and will do so until at least election of 24. Election of 24, when whoever the Republicans, Republicans come to power, obviously all that will change. So it's quite obvious that
I don't think it will change much.
Oh, it will change for sure. But, look at what DeSantis said yesterday. Did you hear that?
No, what do you say?
Yeah, what do you
He
think?
said that United States have no business in Ukraine. Have to get out of Ukraine entirely and as soon as possible. That's what DeSantis said. So,
Well, it's true.
huh?
It's true.
Okay. So what I'm talking about is 75% of Republicans want to get out of Ukraine, like yesterday. Stop helping Ukraine.
The United States isn't in Ukraine.
All there is. So, but I'm talking about the Republican Party. There is also still Democrats.
Oh, United States isn't
How
in
can you
Ukraine.
say
right
that,
now.
Sasha? The United States is not in Ukraine. We don't have any troops there.
Well, so what
what
Biden
You
was
advise your
what
problem.
Biden
was back and be a governor of
billions and
Mississippi.
billions and tens
What
of
an
billions
idiot.
and hundreds of billions of dollars.
Well,
United
sometimes
States sending to
That's
Ukraine.
enough.
Why
Can
they're
we
doing
slap
that?
DeSantis around? The guy's a fool. Okay? If the Republicans think they're going to win the election, they're going to put DeSantis. They're full of it. They ain't going to.
Sasha, what was the purpose of him going to Ukraine?
To show
That's a good
unity with
question.
Ukrainian people, that's what.
No, it
Why
was.
did he
it
go to
was a
Ohio?
follow-up.
It's a unity with people in Ohio, where the railroads, where the
So
trains
far,
blew up.
Democratic
Yeah, you
Party
should've spent
is
time
in
Ohio
charge,
where
okay?
Americans are
President
suffering, right?
Biden is Democrat. And
I
Democratic
understand.
Party
He's an
wants
American president.
Ukraine, period. Republicans, when they will come to power, they'll do anything.
Well, we can see your obvious bias. Sasha.
Sasha, why didn't he show solidarity with American people, like in Ohio, where the trains crashed and blew up?
Because they don't care.
Oh,
They said
there
that,
are
right?
50 states, or there are 50 trains will be crashed anytime soon. There is no infrastructure in the United States. It's all very poorly
Actually,
made.
if you have anything to do
And
with
so
it,
there
Well,
will be crashes.
I think it's because the state of Ohio doesn't have nuclear bombs aimed
So
at
is Russia. Russia has no nuclear bombs. I was listening very carefully to interview
well, they have all the ones.
somebody, Yuri.
And Nick, don't we care about the climate? All that smoke and all those explosions and the fumes
Did you hear
and the
that?
gases. And what's it doing to the air and the water in Ohio? Don't we have a disaster over there?
So the Ohio, they have a governor, I guess, right? So let's
Yeah.
Ohio deal with the
Well,
problem of Ohio.
In the
That's
United States,
story.
Sasha,
What
we
can you
have
do
a
about that?
president, and we have
And what
people
Ukraine
up,
has to do
and
with
we
the
have
misfortunes
disaster
of
relief.
Ohio.
and we
What
have
is
those kinds of things that are all part of the way we handle disasters in the United States. Normally, a president takes notice of things, disasters in the United States. and
True,
he's
but
supposed to go
there is
there.
much more
Instead,
important.
what he did is he went to Ukraine and did a photo op, right?
In a war
And did
zone.
all this
How's that
other
responsible?
Listen,
It really
people of
wasn't
Ohio
responsible.
have governor. People of Ohio have to take care of themselves.
Really? Is that how it
The
works?
governor of
The
Ohio
people of
is there.
Ukraine have to
He's
take care of
paid
themselves,
some money,
Sasha?
I guess.
I mean, I didn't know. I mean, is
Sasha,
Ukraine
historically,
ever-
presidents go to scenes of tragedy, whether Katrina, whatever.
There are
I never
too
heard
many
about
tragedies
that
in the United States.
Not in this proportion.
There's no infrastructure.
Well, no,
And
Nobody
what
died in
Ohio,
what can you do about that?
Sasha,
Show me
You
all the
think
deaths
just
in
chickens
country in Ohio.
and birds?
Here's how many people
You're not
died
part
in
of
Ohio.
NATO, you know.
Zero.
Listen,
You want to go drink the water, Nick?
guys, let me fair.
If
You
Ukraine
want
crashed
to
in
criticize
Ukraine, you
Biden.
would have no.
Biden, how come you go to Kiev? How
But
come
in
you
Ohio, the
you
train
go to
crashed.
Ohio?
People are dying
Let's go there.
in Ukraine.
That's
Nobody
it.
Hold
died
on a
in
second.
Ohio.
Hey,
Go
Nobody.
to
That's right,
Ohio.
Chico. You agree with me, don't you?
What are
Every
you
day in
doing
Ohio, Nick.
here? Lee, go to Ohio. Dan, go to Ohio. Help people of Ohio. That's
If
what.
it would have been a Scranton, hey, the man would have been there in a lick of the split, right?
Who cares about a train derailment in Ohio where no one got
He
killed?
would have been
Where
there
we've
licking
got
the
people
split.
that are being butchered, literally,
Yeah.
and being raped and murdered and slaughtered in Ukraine.
Yeah, but
Okay,
they're not
so-
Americans.
Hey, hold on a
Dude,
second.
they're not Americans.
Hey, Nick.
Why does he go to Sudan then, Nick?
No,
Go to Yemen.
that's the place
Go to
he needs
Syria.
go.
Humans last
Or
time I looked.
Somalia.
So what are you saying, Dan? These people are humans, okay?
And
Yeah,
yes,
no,
and
we
you know,
love them. I mean,
and
they're
I'll tell
people.
you another reason why Biden went to Kiev.
Right.
Because
Money.
what happened in Kiev
Some-
today, the best vodka is
Right.
produced in
What
Kiev.
message does it send? Well, I mean, yeah, you got that. You got it. You know.
I was surprised there's anything left in that, Sasha. Can I just
That's
say?
his trump card.
Waiting
Can I
for-
just say? Yes, we will definitely finish that when I'm back. So let me just say, I don't think this is a one or the other, right? Joe Biden could go to the Ukraine if he wanted to, and he could go to Ohio, and I think that he probably should go to Ohio, and especially Pete Buttigieg should be over in Ohio. This is a pretty significant disaster. There's clearly going to be an environmental issue there. You've got the federal government saying the water's clean to drink, and you've got the media going out with sticks and pushing their sticks through the water, and you're getting all of this multicolored, chemicals in the water. Clearly there's an issue there. I think Republicans are trying to play this as that Biden has chosen the Ukraine over Ohio, and the Democrats are basically trying to make out that all is well, and there's nothing to say here. I mean, this is just silly. The
Hey,
people of
Shaquille,
Ohio deserve to have a proper response from the federal government. They deserve to have more than $1,000 given to them. The people of Palestine, unfortunate name, given the circumstances, the people of Palestine deserve more than $1,000 from a $55 billion trade company. And I think the people of Ukraine deserve to have a bit more support. But I think Sasha makes a very good point that although Americans may not like paying for this, and the rest of the allies around the world may not like the amount of money being spent to Ukraine, if the United States and other countries have to protect NATO, and for some reason Ukraine was to fall, a conflict with Russia throughout Europe is going to be significantly more expensive. So that is a good point Sasha makes. I would just say, though, and I've said this to Sasha in person, it does seem a bit strange to me that we were told for years that Ukraine was one of the most corrupt places on earth, and all of a sudden there's a conflict and we're sending tens of billions of dollars at a time with no real accountability as to where that money's going. So we need to have a bit of sense and a bit of balance here.
We're not sending
but
money,
are
we're
you
sending
aware
arms.
that
Hello.
Congress,
News alert to the people in Australia. The United States is
Nick,
sending
Nick,
timers. They're
Nick,
sending
there's been money. There was money sent as
those
well.
things aren't like
There was-
dollar bills that are being sent.
Nick,
over.
Nick, there was money.
Australia.
Nick, there was
out-
money sent as well. Okay, and as you are well aware, arms can be readily resold.
Oh, I see.
For
So
money.
you're
There
saying
was a
some
outage
may have a problem.
by
You're saying
U.S.
Ukrainians are taking
Congress.
arms and turning
Both
around and selling
Republicans
them to the
and
Russians.
No, Nick, what I'm saying is that there needs to be some
Or is
accountability.
it going to sell the
And they
tanks?
found no.
What I'm saying, Nick, is there needs to be some accountability
They can
as to how
find
the resources are being
all
spent.
the books are open. So all this garbage about Ukraine corruption, we are sending money to corrupted country. It's nothing but garbage, 100%. Verify, prove it. What are you talking about? There is
Hey,
an outage done by
Sasha.
U.S. Congress, and they
Hey,
found
Sasha.
no
Sasha
trace.
and Shaquille, hold on a second, because I'd love to hear, because we've talked on this
He's
show.
just making it up.
Hold on a second.
Just like Fox
Don't
I don't
repeat
like the
Fox
narrative, I'll just
News.
make it up.
The
There's
corruption
no
is
reason. I've got a
only
question to
in
ask
the
you
mouth
about it.
of Fox News. That's all there is to it. Okay?
That's not true. That's
Spend
not
so
true,
much
Sasha,
time with
because
Murdoch over in Australia.
we've been told by media.
You got
We've been
Murdoch.
told by media
Listen
prior
to
to this
Fox News,
conflict.
guys.
Prior to this conflict, we were told by media all sorts of things about the Ukraine. I'm not saying it's true or not. I'm just saying that's what the media has told us. And the media tells us that the place is corrupt. Then all of a sudden, after all these years, there's a conflict over there, and then all of a sudden we're not allowed to ask any questions. That seems ridiculous. But as I said, I accept and agree with your point. If we don't support the Ukraine, it'd be a lot more costly for us later if we have to try and defend Europe.
So what you're going to say, Ukraine, you are corrupted. So therefore, we are not going to send you any help. Therefore, go and die and just do whatever you want to do because you're
I think I
Well,
just said the opposite
in
of that.
addition to
No,
Ukraine,
Sasha, hang on, Sasha. I think I just said the opposite of that, actually. I just
Yeah,
said
you
the
did.
exact opposite of that.
No, I know.
yeah, he was agreeing with you.
Yeah,
Sasha.
he's agreeing with us. He says,
Hey,
Sasha, we can support them and send help for the weapons and for the war, why do we have to support the social services and pensions and health care for all of them at the same time? Is there no limit to what we're giving them? No accountability?
Services, pensions.
Why not?
Yes.
This is well,
Since
right?
when
Google
my
it, Nick.
Republican
What
friends
pension?
became
And who's
bookkeepers,
spending the money? Is that
everything is for what? We're gonna give you this and this. Oh, that one? No, this one it's too much money.
According
Come
to
on.
war plans
Listen,
by the
what's
US
happening right
by the
now?
Soviets,
That there
right?
is a new
Russians.
nation is being
So they
born.
plan to
The
invade
Ukraine is
Belarus
getting
next year.
born as
I
a
think it
new
is.
nation.
So
There is a long
there's no
process
end
of
to
rebuilding
Putin's
Ukraine, not
plans
just
to
not
expand
just defeating
his
Russians,
empire.
but
That's
to
kind of his
rebuild
plan.
Ukraine, and
So it
that
isn't just really
requires
about
that
Ukraine. It's about
Ukraine will not be corrupted,
plans
that
to
it will play
expand,
with open books, and all countries will rebuild Ukraine and very quickly. Now, Russia will go on the other hand. It will go down the drain because the more and more information now being revealed that they don't have any nuclear arms ready and available to be used. They never changed anything of this the warheads since 1997. So the whether it's plutonium or
yeah, with the Russian nuclear warheads, all
they
you have
don't
to do
have
is
anything. All their
you
missiles
know,
were
it's kind of like
building
horseshoes,
Ukraine
right?
during the time of Soviet
Because
Union.
they're
And
big, ugly, and
Ukrainians know how to
deadly.
build them, maintain them,
They
and
have
Russia
higher
has
yields than
no
ours.
clue, no idea. And until even 2014, they were bringing Ukrainians to maintain these warheads. Of course, after 2014, it was no longer the option. So they were trying to figure out how to do. And they
And the
sent
Russians just
Ukrainians
canceled the
on
START
the
treaty
stuff
as well.
which
Yeah,
maintains
they
That was
just
announced.
mentioned that they canceled
nuclear
the START
warheads.
treaty, and they're
Yeah,
also
the
going to
START treaty
rescue
was
some. They're also
canceled.
going to rescue some stranded cosmonauts or some stranded astronauts of their in
Yeah,
space.
and it was also announced that they found intelligence leaked out of Putin's office that Russia plans to invade Belarus next.
Right.
And so, you know, it's just not about Ukraine. It really is about Putin in his older age thinking maniacally about putting back together the old Soviet Union. And, you know, I don't have the military strength to do it anymore.
Is he really
it's a
going
pipe
to take
dream.
Belarus as
But-
ally?
Well, he
Man.
Well,
said
he plans on, that's what it said in the news article. I mean,
How could he be so stupid to invade his ally?
Well,
That's what
hey,
well, I'm just going to
Hey,
incorporate them. Like,
Hey,
you know,
Nick and Dan,
back
that
into
could
the
be
country.
he's also come up with another new strategy. I think Shaquille's gonna love this one because it's something that we brought up, and I know Lee has brought it up as well. But in his latest speech that he gave, and he gave it recently, of course, he gave that whole neo-Nazi claim, and I'm not saying whether that is true or not true about some of the leadership in Russia, but now he is also going after the quote-unquote wokeness of this part of the world and everything, because he's also saying that part of the reason he is doing this invasion is to protect Russia from quote unquote rampant pedophilia. I think he's thinking about Epstein and gender neutral pronouns. So he said, look at what they're doing in the West. They distort historical facts, do not stop their attacks on Russian culture, on the Russian Orthodox Church. The West is perverting the family, the national identity. They are making pedophilia the norm in their lives, and priests encourage same-sex marriage. Forgive them, Father. They know not what they do. The Anglican Church is planning, so far only planning, to look into the idea of a gender-neutral God. What do you say to that? So apparently he's
You can't make God neutral gender if he isn't, right? It's sort of like, it means they must be making up the God they worship because they certainly don't know anything about him, right? That's kind of ridiculous. You know, it wasn't in the beginning God created Adam and Steve. It was Adam and Eve. And the point is that's what it says. I didn't make it up. So there are things in the Old Testament called prophets, you know, the people that were the mouthpiece of God, how it worked and the history of it all. And all through time, that's kind of been the way it is. And it's that way today because there are prophets living on the earth today. And there was a Savior that was born into the world to take upon themselves the sins of all mankind. He was a Prince of Peace. And so he's not really in favor of all this war and tragedy that we inflict on ourselves because of our own wickedness, greed, and corruption. You know, I mean, Putin's a madman. We all know that, Sasha. We all agree on that. What he's trying to do is wicked and wrong. He should just go retire in St. Petersburg and kick his feet up and watch, TV or whatever.
You can play
And
chess.
Fox News.
Not bother anybody, right? But see, he's demented at this point. There's no way he can do what he's trying to do. We know that, not without the help of the Chinese, or unless they're in concert with the Chinese, and this is all part of some bigger plan that we don't know anything about. So,
Let me respond to you, Mark. So you made the comment about Jeffrey Epstein. I don't think that's what the comment would have been directed at. Firstly, pedophiles are into children much younger than what Epstein was involved with. But I would say that's got a lot to do with the transing of the kids, bringing kids to drag queen shows and all that sort of stuff. That's probably what
he's right about that.
And look, we are here in the West tearing ourselves apart over stuff that really shouldn't matter that much to us. And I think that, like I just heard one of my favorite childhood authors, Roald Dahl, they're rewriting his stories now, to take out references to certain ethnicities and this and that. We're deleting our history, and we shouldn't be doing that. We should be able to look back and read something that was written by generations past and say, look how much more enlightened we are than they are, if that's what we think. But we shouldn't delete what they said and rewrite it. And if the Anglican Church, which is the church that I am most closely associated with, if they want to try and create a gender-neutral God, they need their heads read. This is not where the congregation is. This is just nonsense.
By the way, speaking about God, there is a very interesting article I read that nobody knows really how the God looks. Really. So
really?
A lot of people believe that because they are created in a God's image, so then white people may be imagining that the God was white.
Well, Sasha, I imagine the only people know what God looks like are the people that have seen.
Well,
God,
but they're trying to create.
Like
if you take the art, if you take Renaissance and all the God's images,
so you're talking about people that don't know what God.
Well, I can tell you, Sasha, that these wokesters with the hairy armpits and the shaved head and all the piercings through them, like they've gone up in someone's fishing tackle box or something. I don't think that they look anything like God. I don't think there's any image of God that they are reflective of.
No, that couldn't be it.
You say that, Shaquille, but there were times when God was
that they
an
are
unclean person when he was going into certain neighborhoods.
If
Well,
that's
they
What's this
were.
one?
They
Sorry,
just
Mark. I didn't
messed it
go, Mark. What was that? What was your little whingy comment to my
they
joke?
are created in God's image. Their black people must believe that the God was black, and therefore they were created in His image. Now the midgets believe.
Sasha, that's only if you believe physical appearance is important.
In His image, okay? So
Well, the Laputians believe,
there are no images of God that they
Irish
all
believe,
can agree
the
upon.
Russians
Okay,
believe,
that's
the
how the God
Ukrainians
looks.
believe,
There's
the
nothing.
Swedish believe.
Nobody knows how He looks. Okay.
Purple
I mean,
people
Righto,
Mark,
Mark. What was your little whingy sort of left wing comment that you were going
It
to
was
make?
not a
That
windy
just
left wing
like-
comment, but I was going to tell a little bit of a joke that I've heard several times. I think Lee's probably heard this joke as well, because there is sometimes this my way or the highway attitude, and that's among various religious groups. And I do remember that one of the stories that I've heard is that, several people come up to heaven and they are greeted by the various archangels and everything. And as they are going by, they are like, there are different rooms that they're sent to. So as they get up to heaven's gate, they're like, when you're up in space 7, you're up in area 7 and everything. But whatever you do, be quiet when you go by room 2. And then the other person come up and they're like, you're in building 8 or space 8, but be quiet when you get to building 2. You're in space 9. Be quiet when you get to building 2. Be very quiet. Don't say anything. Just go to your space. Be very quiet. And then somebody finally gets around and saying, why are we being quiet around building 2? And the person says, because they're the ones that believe that they're the only ones up here.
There's a lot of truth to that.
Okay.
Sasha, to support you, I just Googled real quickly and I put a couple verses from the book of Exodus, where God responds to Moses about seeing his face. that no human should be able to see what he looks like to support what you were saying.
But it's so well known. Yeah, I'm not one who discovered that.
Well, there are scriptures that support God's appearance to prophets on the earth.
Now
so.
let's come back to Palestine for a moment.
Which Palestine, Jock? Which one? In Ohio or in the Mideast?
I let Biden off the hook for being in the Ukraine. I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. But does anybody have any reasonable justification as to why he and Pete Buttigieg has not bothered to go out there? It's been a couple of weeks now. What is going on?
What do you mean going out to Ohio? Nobody died. Okay, show me all the dead bodies. Remember,
this is a
environmental disaster, Nick.
This is a significant major disaster.
Where's the dead body? No dead bodies. We don't care. Next.
This is a major disaster. It's one of the leading stories on the news. And there is potentially some environmental concerns here because of all the chemicals. You've got the EPA and other the same EPA that told everyone after 9/11 that they could
bunch of
the same EPA that said to everyone they could breathe the air in New York after 9/11. That EPA is they're telling people that they should be able to drink the water in that area, and no government person bothers to go out there.
But along those same lines, hold on a second. Along those same lines, does that mean that he needs to go visit Venice? Because apparently Venice is about to be empty. They're saying that there's got a serious shortage of water there. Everybody knows that the canals is one of their major tourist attractions and everything. And they're saying that they're about to have one of the worst droughts in 70 years. So does he and the UN need to go to Venice? Because that also is an environmental disaster about to happen.
Maybe.
You're talking about Venice in California. You're talking about Venice in
Venice
in Italy.
Hang on. My question is, why has there not been anybody in federal government that has bothered to visit an area where there has been a major event? Right, it's been a train derailment with carrying tons and tons of chemicals that's seeped into the local environment. That needs a response. And nobody's responded. The people in charge of the areas that should be looking after this haven't shown up.
They sent the EPA. What do you want to do? Send in the National Guard? You want to have a big parade up and down?
You don't think that Pete Buttigieg should make an appearance?
Sorry, the people.
You don't think that Pete? You don't think that Pete Buttigieg should make an appearance there? You don't think that would be appropriate? You think it's appropriate for the EPA to sit there in Washington and say you can drink the drinking water without even going out to see it themselves, do any tests themselves? Sounds absurd.
That's up to the EPA, but it's not a major crisis that Joe Biden needs to jump off his plane and run over to Palatine. That's ridiculous.
Okay.
I mean, the thing.
By the way, I'll tell you.
Someone should rewind the tapes. Someone should rewind the tapes and hear some of the criticism that was leveled on this show to Donald Trump when he didn't respond quickly enough to events in the United States and didn't cause anyone's death. Maybe we should rewind that.
Let me just make one.
That was some of the criticism that you had.
Instead of going to Kiev and Warsaw, if he would go to Ohio, the Fox News would say, "Look at this old idiot! Instead of going to Kiev, to Warsaw, to fight for U.S. point of view, he went to little Ohio that nobody cares about. Look at this old idiot, what he's doing." Okay, so now he went to Kiev, he went to Warsaw. Oh, he can go to Ohio. Look at him. This is garbage. Everything what you hear.
Number one job, national security. There's a bunch of trains that fell apart.
Sasha, I might just point out to you that CNN and MSNBC have both actually mentioned that perhaps Pete Buttigieg and Biden should have gone out to Ohio. And as I said, I'm not saying that it's one or the other. It's not Ohio or the Ukraine. I'm saying that there's enough people in federal government that somebody high up in the government should be visiting. But now that you guys are so obsessed with Fox News, I'd like to ask you this. What are your thoughts and feelings on the leaked text messages, shall we say, between high-ranking executives and hosts of Fox channels in relation to them saying that Donald Trump's claims were ridiculous and that woman lawyer was a kook in relation to the lawsuit that's been brought against them by Dominion counting systems? What do you guys think? Are they hypocrites?
That's embarrassing for Fox News.
Yeah.
Shakil,
I don't think you can embarrass Fox News.
It's just saying this.
No,
The
you
thing
can't
is-
embarrass Fox News. It's an embarrassment in itself. I mean,
Shakil,
it's
you
run
got
by
to
a bloody
create
Australian, and we're listening to their garbage. I mean, and this whole thing, oh, we shouldn't have government regulation. You know the problem when you don't have government regulation? It's called the train derailment. Because the thing is, Norfolk Southern is well known to overstock the trains more than the system can take because no government regulation stops them from doing it.
Yeah, but I've never, if that's directed at me, I've never advocated for no
Is it
regulation.
directed at you?
Well, yeah, I assume that's what it is. I've never said no. I've never said no regulation. What I've said is sensible regulation. Okay, there's no point having regulations for the sake of having regulations. There's no point having a system which is so complex and convoluted that nobody can kind of navigate the system. That just holds up progress. There has to be a balance between no regulation and over-regulation. That's all I've ever suggested.
No,
But you guys act as though there isn't a regulation that you don't dislike.
No, but Shaquille, in that same line, there has been conversation about
Fox. Here's what it is. Fox has the same problem as all Republican Party. Trump controls the party. Trump is by far number one to be winning the nomination and fight it in a general election against whoever will represent Democrats. And this is a huge contradictions that, in fact, most of the Republicans, they don't want Trump. However, he controls the base, he controls finances, and anybody, even whoever DeSantis or Nikki Haley or whatever, there are people, they will not oppose Trump really because they know that it will be the end of their careers. Hey,
well, according to CNN's most popular, according to CNN's most popular host, Dom Lemon, apparently Nikki Haley's past her prime. So do we think he's coming back from that? I don't think.
No, I think he is. I think Don Lemon is a lemon.
I think he's gone. I can't see him coming back from that.
He's gone already.
But as for he's not officially gone yet. He just didn't show up.
He's coming back tomorrow.
Shows. But yeah, I don't think he'll survive this, actually, to be honest. And I think when it comes to Fox, I mean, those messages, the Fox executives are saying that they were taken out of context. But either way, I think it looks bad. It looks like they didn't believe it. They, went with it anyway. They went with this story anyway. And it's sort of now coming out. But let's see what Fox says. I dare say
you think the credibility now is shot?
I think. Look, personally, I think Fox took a big hit to their credibility when I forget the host, but Kayleigh McEnany was giving a speech at the podium, basically saying that she wants all legal votes counted, and then Fox News cut off her feed, which meant that if you were interested in what was happening, you had no way of actually being able to see or hear what she said. I think they lost their credibility at that point. Plus, there was some leaked footage of hosts backstage, saying stuff about some of the people that were on the show about how ridiculous what they were saying was. So I think they lost their credibility then with a lot of their audience, and that's where a lot of the right wing audience went to places like Newsmax and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, look, the reality is that all media is biased. Some just more so than others. It's clear that Fox is biased to the right, and CNN and MSNBC and other channels like that are biased to the left. But what I don't understand is why people like Nick over there wants to try and pretend that all the left-wing media aren't left-wing and the only bias that exists is on the right. That just seems strange to me to have that belief.
Shakil, to say that Fox is biased is very mildly put, really, because Fox News already announced themselves. They are not news, they are entertainment. Okay? That's why.
Same as CNN.
CNN didn't say so. CNN is a news channel, okay? They can
yes. So when it's your side, it's absolutely fine. It's all factual. It's not opinion. But when it's the other side, it's just for entertainment value. Well, then let the people be entertained by Fox and stop getting all your knickers in a knot about it.
Exactly. That's what happened.
Hey, Shaquille, as we're winding down and everything, I do have a question that is actually about the environment and it's actually about oil and everything that, because apparently Joe Biden has got himself in somewhat of a dilemma because he's definitely got these various climate goals, but he has also approved there in Texas some rules and regulations that are going to expand the U.S. oil exports by nearly 7 million barrels every day. But they're also saying that there could be some emission issues with that, because they're saying, some of the critics, that this is a huge carbon bomb project and all in that line. So is he going to be able to escape this, or is this another case of him saying one thing and having to do another action in order to have the energy that we need here in the United States? Because that is one of the things that's going.
Well, he unfortunately comes up against, as a lot of environmental groups come up against, this thing called reality and viability, right? At the moment, you need oil. It's something that we're trying to transition away from as a humanity. We are trying to come up with more sustainable, clean energy solutions, but at the moment we need it. And I think it's about using it as efficiently as we can. That becomes really important. But until we have got the technologies available to us, we can't just not have oil at all. So what can he do? He has to do.
Yeah, they should have thought about that 2 years ago, by the way.
Yeah, because they're saying
Dan, I think they did.
Yeah, because
They
they're saying
thought before
these
they did, they just
depots are going to emit
didn't care.
3 times what the entire U.S. emits each year, and they're claiming that this is going to push the world closer to a climate catastrophe. But of course, that might not happen in our lifetime.
Well, it's okay. Nick doesn't care about the climate catastrophe at all.
What you need to have is really put on solutions that are going to produce good outcomes that are going to work and are going to be economically viable. But it's also important to remember that even if you were to switch all energy production away from oil, even if you could do that, you'd still need oil. We use oil byproducts for pharmaceuticals.
Oh, yeah,
we use oil byproducts to make, if you look at any building, all the buildings that you guys are in right now, if you just have a look around, most of the materials there have got some sort of base in oil. So I don't think we should ever just hate oil and just pretend oil is this evil substance. Oil has done a lot for us as humanity. The energy part that we're using can certainly be done other ways, and there are technologies that are in its infancy still, which I think is very worth looking at, like tidal power, which is essentially like you have wind farms, you put these things in the ocean. Now there is an environmental cost to that as well. There's some concerns about marine life and all that sort of stuff, but that's stuff that we can actually talk about. That's stuff that should be being explored. It's not.
Instead, you can attach toys for the dolphins so they can play.
Well, there's other things that play there, Dan. But what ends up happening is we have this conversation about it's either oil or solar panels or something, and then when solar panels are suggested in places that don't work, in areas where they're not going to work, then the right goes, well, see, the solar panels don't work. And then the left goes, well, see, that is going to destroy the planet. And the conversation never goes anywhere. So I think that's why Joe Biden has to do what he's doing, because reality and economic viability is just what you're faced with when you're going down this path.
That makes a lot of sense. I know we're going to wind down and everything.
Coming up.
Yeah, we do have the Ukraine show. One thing I'm curious to see, and maybe Sasha will bring it up in the Ukraine show, is that Japan has said that it wants to take over as the leader of the fight and the giving of money, and they've definitely given a lot of money. So maybe they're going to wind up giving even more money than the U.S. has, and definitely it also looks like China is aligning even further with Russia. So that could be us pushing us toward World War III and everything, but I'm sure that Sasha may get to that on the show coming up at 11 o'clock. So
there will be Japan, there will be many others, because U.S. cannot do a great job when almost half of the country is against help. All the announcements of the upcoming Republicans fighting for the election, they're all against helping Ukraine. And in Ukraine, people are aware of it, and they know that they have time until November 24 to really have their victory. And now, all to Ukrainian show. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
The world has